right? So gene mutation, what it is that this is a change in the chemical structure of a gene, like I said. All right, so we've got a chemical structure. Okay, so a chemical structure changes. All right, so we say that these gene, they've got a fixed structure according to what type of a gene it is, or to what type of the allele it is. So that sudden change in its chemical structure on a gene, that is what is called gene mutation. Now examples of gene mutation in humans include albinism, for example. Okay, we have sickle cell, ideally sickle cell anemia, and we also have red-green color blind. All right, so these are examples. We can also include hemophilia. Remember, we talked about hemophilia. Okay, so we can have also hemophilia. So these are just some few examples of gene mutation. Okay, so for example, albinism, this is just a condition whereby an organism lacks the capacity to synthesize the melanin. All right, okay, the melanin. So as a result, these people, they tend to have the skin, the hairs, the eyebrows, the eyelashes, all they appear to be white because they do not have the melanin. So that is what is all about albinism. Then so you can see this melanin disorder or albinism in almost of all the species. You can see it in monkeys. You can see it in human. Especially it's common in human beings, but also you can see it in other organisms such as the monkeys, even other species like fish. You can see them. So then about the sickle cell anemia, so this is an also inherited disease, right, where a person has an abnormal hemoglobin, making the red blood cells sickled, especially when oxygen levels are low in the body. So the disease reduces the capacity to transport oxygen, right? So this is whereby you've got a sickle, right, a sickle cell structured red blood cell. So usually they also cause pain in people that they have it. So one advantage of having sickle cell anemia is that it has been associated to reduce the inheritance of malaria, right? So this is because the malaria parasite will fail to reproduce inside the abnormal red blood cell due to its small amounts in oxygen, or just even the shape itself, right? So we talked about hemophilia. I'm not going to talk about it. I was just giving you something that maybe came as new. All right, so let me now talk about the chromosome mutation. So chromosome mutation is another type of mutation that would earlier introduced. All right, so under the chromosome mutation, what we expect is that this is now the change. All right, this is the change in number of of chromosome. And remember, ideally we said that these chromosomes are fixed. So if the numbers changes there, then we can have what we call chromosome mutation. Now chromosome mutation causes what is called Down syndrome. All right, so it causes what we call Down syndrome. So Down syndrome is a genetic disorder, ideally where we find that people are having 47 number of chromosomes instead of 46. Remember the 46, right? So we said 23 from one parent, another 23 from the other parent, which gives us 46. But during mutation, during chromosome mutation, this 26, there will be that sudden change in number. So we can have 47, even 45 to some extent. All right, so we can, but ideally what is common is 47. So there has been a sudden change in the number of chromosomes, and this condition causes the Down syndrome. Now, one of the signs of Down syndromes includes mental retardation, right? So mental retardation, I hope we understand by what is mental retardation. We have also round face. You've seen people with a round face. Ideally, this condition is known as Mongolian, right? This condition is known as the Mongolian. Another thing is that we can have people with 6 digits in terms of their fingers or in their foots. We can have that. So mutation is a source of variation within a population. That is what also you should know. So that is about chromosome mutation, and also it's important to know that this mutation is a source of variation. You remember that our first video talked about variation, and we talked about the 2 different types of variation. So if you haven't, I'll put a link in the description below. So ladies and gentlemen, our class, that is about today's video on mutation. So we looked at sex inheritance, we went on to look at sex linkage, and we talked about mutations, as these are conditions that affect the genetic makeup as well as the chromosome, as well as the chromosomes. So other things to look at, we'll talk about selection, but before I close this video, it will be important for me to talk about genetic engineering as well as selections with regards to genetics as I conclude this topic with you. So let me just mention what selection is. All right, so in selection, what happens is that this is a process by which a selection pressure acts on population, eliminating some individuals while allowing the fittest individuals to survive. So it's a selection. What is happening is that there's a pressure where it is acting on a population, right, eliminating some individuals and allowing only what is fit to survive. All right, so this is why they say life it's a what? It's a survive, right? So life it's a, so if all these are the population, right, that needs to be, that needs to make it, but only the fittest, right? Only the fittest or the finest or the strongest is selected. So meaning that all these, the rest individuals will be eliminated. So that is about selection. So organisms who survive the selection process passes their gene to their offspring. That's what happens. All right, so that is, that what happens, so thereby ensuring that the continuity of their characteristics will continue to exist. And this is why you are able to look at some certain resemblance in grandchildren, in grandparents to their children, to their grand and their great. So it's about selection. That is the process that works. So ideally there are 2 types of selection. All right, so we can have natural selection as well as artificial selection. So in a natural selection, this means that, all right, it occurs through the natural means, in short, right, such as disease, competition. All right, so about genetic engineering, okay, like the name suggests, right, like the name suggests about genetic engineering. So genetic engineering, this is just the transfer of genes. Okay, so this is the transfer of genes from one organism, okay, to another, from one organism to another organism. Okay, that can be of the same species or that can be of different species. So ideally, what happens is that an organism carrying a modified gene or a gene transferred from one another is called a genetically modified organism, known as GMO. Remember, we've got GMO foods, right? We've got GMO meats, especially in Africa. We've got yellow maize. We've heard where we've got yellow maize. We've got chickens, which we normally call, in our local language, which we call lon, lon, the white chickens, for example. And different foods are made as a result of genetic engineering. So you can look at what are advantages and disadvantages of this, ideally. So you can look at that. So an example of the application of genetic, maybe that I can give you engineering, is maybe making human insulin using bacteria. And in this case, the gene for human insulin is transferred to the bacteria, and the bacteria begins making the human insulin. So this insulin is then isolated, right, purified, and put in appropriate containers for diabetic to utilize, for diabetic people to utilize it. So because of genetic engineering, medicine has been, have been developed, right? Or maybe cures, right? Curing agent have been made, vaccines that have been made because of genetic engineering, foods and everything like that. But okay, also you can talk about, its advantages. You can look at some, maybe as you're reading assignment, you can look at disadvantages of genetic engineering. Thank you so much. And that has been, this is the last part of our topic where we started looking at genetics. We looked at from genetics from the first. We looked at different types of variation. We went on and we looked at nuclear division, how the nucleus divides itself. From there, we talked about different types of terminologies in genetics, as well as we looked at different experiments that have been done. And this is today we are ending. We are in today's video focused on sex inheritance. We looked at sex linkages, mutation, then we looked at selection, as well as genetic engineering. Thank you so much. If you find this channel so helpful to you, please don't forget to give us a thumb, and also don't forget to subscribe, and also invite people to subscribe. Thank you so much.